380 miles. That's how close the most expensive warship ever built is sitting right now. To Venezuelan soil, the USS Gerald R. Ford, $13.3 billion of American firepower, surrounded by destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and 15,000 combat-ready troops. And just days ago, armed special forces fast-roped from helicopters onto the deck of an oil tanker in international waters, seizing $130 million worth of Venezuelan crude. President Trump's message to Nicolas Maduro was simple. If he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough. This is the largest American military buildup in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And tonight, we're going to show you exactly what's happening and why the next few weeks could change everything. The buildup. To understand what's happening right now in the Caribbean, we need to go back to November 16th, 2025. That's when the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group entered the Caribbean Sea through the Windward Passage between Cuba and Haiti. But this wasn't a routine patrol, not even close. The Ford didn't come alone. She brought an entire armada, 7 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the Bainbridge, Mahan, Winston Churchill, Stockdale, Gravely, Jason Dunham, and Sampson, each one carrying Tomahawk cruise missiles capable of striking targets over 1,000 miles away. The guided missile cruiser USS Lake Erie, equipped with the Aegis Combat System, one of the most advanced air defense platforms on the planet. The amphibious assault ship USS Iwo Jima, carrying the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, 2,200 Marines, ready for anything, and lurking beneath the surface, the USS Newport News, a Los Angeles-class attack submarine that Venezuela's Navy would never see coming. But that's not all. At the refurbished Roosevelt Roads Naval Station in Puerto Rico, the Air Force positioned F-35A Lightning II-stage stealth fighters, 10 CV-22 Ospreys for special operations, MQ-9 Reaper drones for round-the-clock surveillance, and reports indicate B-52 Stratofortress bombers have been conducting training flights within striking distance. Add it all up, and you're looking at $25 to $30 billion worth of American military hardware, all pointed at one country, Venezuela. Trump's threats. President Trump has never been subtle about his intentions toward Venezuela, but what he's been saying since September, that's something else entirely. September 15th, Memphis, Tennessee, a law enforcement event. Trump tells the crowd, "We're going to be stopping them too when they come by land." October 22nd, meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Trump doubles down. "We're going to hit them very hard when they come in by land." November 29th, a Truth Social post that stopped analysts in their tracks. Venezuelan airspace, Trump declared, was now closed in its entirety. Think about that for a moment. The President of the United States unilaterally declaring another sovereign nation's airspace closed. But the real escalation came on December 17th. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. A total and complete blockade. Now, some might call this rhetoric, political theater. But when you have $30 billion in naval assets backing up those words, the line between threat and action becomes very, very thin. And 3 days later, Trump made his most direct warning yet. If he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough. The tanker seizures. December 10th, 2025. International waters off the Venezuelan coast. A 333-meter supertanker called the Skipper is carrying 1.8 million barrels of Venezuelan crude oil, worth approximately $130 million. The ship's transponder shows it near Singapore, but satellite imagery tells a different story. The Skipper is actually anchored at Venezuela's Jose terminal using location spoofing technology to hide its true position. At 0:30, helicopters lift off from the USS Gerald R. Ford, 10 Coast Guard operators, 10 Marines, Special Operations Forces. Within minutes, they're fast roping onto the tanker's deck. Attorney General Pam Bondi released a 45-second video of the operation, armed personnel securing the vessel, the crew offering no resistance. The seizure of this vessel highlights our successful efforts to impose costs on the governments of Venezuela and Iran. You see, the skipper wasn't just any tanker. According to the Treasury Department, this vessel had been under sanctions since 2022 for facilitating oil trades between Venezuela, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and Hezbollah. The ship was escorted to Galveston, Texas, where it now sits 40 miles offshore, undergoing forfeiture proceedings. When asked what would happen to the oil, Trump's response was characteristically blunt. "We keep it, I guess." But the skipper was just the beginning. 10 days later, American forces seized a second tanker. The Centuries, another 1.8 million barrels of Venezuelan crude. But here's what's significant. The Centuries wasn't on any sanctions list. It was targeted solely for carrying what the administration called sanctioned oil. Legal scholars immediately raised concerns. This wasn't about sanctions evasion. This was something new, something that stretched the boundaries of international maritime law. Two tankers, $260 million in oil, seized in international waters. And Venezuela's response was about to match the escalation. Venezuela mobilizes. It's November 28, 2025. Caracas. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez steps before the cameras with a message for Washington. Do not even think about attacking Venezuela. Do not commit madness. The people of Venezuela are ready, always ready. Together with the armed forces, we are ready to fight. We are ready to die, but we will never die. Within hours, Venezuela mobilized nearly 200,000 soldiers across the country. Ground forces, naval units, air defense crews, missile batteries. This was the largest Venezuelan military activation in modern history. And they weren't just putting on a show. Venezuelan Su-30 Mk-2 fighter jets, Russian-built twin-engine air superiority aircraft, were armed with Ka-31 anti-ship missiles. These missiles travel at Mach 3, fast enough to challenge even American destroyers. On the ground, Venezuela activated its S-300 air defense batteries, approximately a dozen systems, according to intelligence assessments. These are the same systems Russia uses to protect Moscow. Buk M2E medium-range systems, over 5,000 Igla-S man-portable missiles, according to Maduro's claims. And in Caracas, something else was happening. Concrete barriers appeared on the highway connecting the capital to the coast. Anti-vehicle defenses, the kind you'd expect in a city preparing for invasion. President Maduro's response to Trump's blockade was defiant. We do not want a slave's peace nor the peace of colonies. Colony, never. Slaves, never. Venezuela wasn't standing alone either. Russia, China, Iran, Cuba all issued statements of support. Meanwhile, Argentina, Panama, and Chile's president-elect backed the American position. The Caribbean was becoming a chessboard, and the pieces were already in motion. Military analysis. So what happens if this actually turns into a shooting war? Military analysts have been running the numbers, and the assessment is complicated. On paper, it's not even close. The United States Navy is the most powerful maritime force in human history. The Ford Carrier Strike Group alone carries more firepower than most countries' entire militaries. American air superiority would be absolute within hours. Venezuela's Air Force, aging Russian fighters, limited spare parts, questionable maintenance, wouldn't survive the first day. But here's what the Pentagon knows that the public often forgets. A recent analysis from War on the Rocks, written by a former U.S. Naval Academy professor, put it this way: Venezuela's military is weak in battle, but potentially dangerous in resistance. Venezuela is 12 times larger than Panama. The terrain is brutal. Mountains, jungles, urban sprawl, and those 200,000 troops. Most analysts don't expect them to win a conventional war, but they don't need to. If even a fraction of Venezuela's military, plus the armed civilian militias Maduro claims number 8 million, transitions to guerrilla resistance, the United States could find itself in another forever war. We've seen this movie before: Iraq, Afghanistan, superior American firepower winning the battle, but struggling to win the peace. And there's another factor: domestic politics. On December 18th, the House of Representatives voted on a war powers resolution that would have limited Trump's military options in Venezuela. It failed, but only by 2 votes, 213 to 211. Meanwhile, a CBS News poll found that only 13% of Americans view Venezuela as a major threat. The American public isn't exactly clamoring for another war. Timeline and current status. Let's put this all together with a complete timeline. September 2nd, U.S. begins airstrikes on alleged drug trafficking boats. Over 100 people killed. November 16th, the Ford enters the Caribbean. Trump designates Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. December 10th, the Skipper tanker seized. December 17th, Trump announces total blockade. December 18th, House rejects war powers resolution by 2 votes. December 20th, the Century's tanker seized. December 22nd, Trump warns Maduro directly. December 23rd, Venezuela passes emergency anti-piracy legislation. The UN Security Council convenes. As of right now, the Ford Carrier Strike Group remains on station. Venezuelan forces remain mobilized. 2 tankers sit off the Texas coast, and both sides are waiting to see who blinks first. The last time American forces were this close to a military confrontation in the Caribbean, it was 1962. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. This isn't that, not yet. But with $25 billion in American firepower sitting 380 miles from Venezuelan soil, with 2 tankers already seized, with both presidents issuing threats that leave little room for retreat. The next few weeks will determine whether this becomes a footnote in history or the opening chapter of something much, much bigger. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We'll be covering every development as this situation unfolds. Until next time.